matters, and now the Minister of Interior is going to speak. Mr. Speaker, Your representatives, I'd just like to say that the Ministry of Interior has done this novelization in order to fulfill the government's goals, stated goals. The government would like to let citizens of Slovakia get naturalized abroad in a country where they've been living for a while. The government would like to solve the situation of people who have already lost their citizenship, and so that they can get their citizenship back on European principles. And we would like to make it simpler for Slovaks living abroad to get citizenship. So people can get citizenship back if they are former citizens who lost their citizenship since 2010, and the requirement is that they became naturalized after 5 years. And just sort of my intermission is that this is not the part that is relevant to most people from our group. This is relevant to those who lost it under the 2010 dual citizenship ban, basically. Okay, so back to the Minister. And so for those who lost their citizenship under the dual citizenship thing, they will be exempted from all other requirements if they have been living in the state where they naturalized for 5 years. They're also introducing exemptions for adoptions. In connection with the simplification, they are going to extend the exemptions from the language requirement. And this is for applicants who are older than 60, applicants who have already attended school in Slovak, applicants who were citizens of Czechia, and citizens or applicants who have the SLA card, and ancestors of former Czechoslovak citizens from Slovakia are getting simplified. These applicants who had a parent, grandparent, great-grandparent who was a Czechoslovak parent born in Slovakia, they will only be required to have permitted stay, which is a residence permit in Slovakia, which is a simplification compared to currently which required 2 years, and it was more complicated. The applicant cannot be a security threat to Slovakia, and this is a technical requirement they're introducing. Is not necessarily related to the ancestral route that we have been talking about. And now they're just talking about certain exemptions for representation, which is that attorneys can represent people, otherwise they have to represent themselves in applications for citizenship. Now they're just talking about some technical things. And the proposed effective date is July 1st, so that is staying the same. The representatives, I'd like to ask you to support this law. Thank you very much.
Ďakujem pekne za úvodné slovo, pán minister. Pani poslankyňa Pleštinská, poprosím vás ako spravodajkyňu.
All right, thank you, Minister. I'm going to ask the representative Pleštinská to say her statement as she was the rapporteur on this law. Dear Mr. Speaker, dear Mr. Minister, dear representatives, the Committee of the National Council for regional development has appointed me as the rapporteur for the amendment on the Act on Citizenship.
Podávam v prvom čítaní spravodajskú informáciu
So I'd like to submit
o
my
predmetnom
report as a
návrhu
rapporteur on
zákona.
this amendment.
Návrh zákona spĺňa náležitosti podľa
Now just
rokovacieho
some technical
poriadku
things.
a legislatívnych pravidiel tvorby zákonov. Zo znenia uvedeného návrhu zákona je zrejmý účel navrhovanej úpravy. Vychádzajúc z oprávnení, ktoré pre mňa ako spravodajcu vyplývajú z paragrafu 73
consistent
zákona,
with the
o
Constitution
rokovacom
and
poriadku
with
odporúčam,
other
aby sa Národná rada po
laws,
všeobecnej rozprave
and it is
uzniesla na tom,
therefore possible
že
to
návrh
pass it as
zákona
a law.
prerokuje v druhom čítaní. V súlade s rozhodnutím predsedu Národnej rady navrhujem, aby návrh zákona prerokovali Ústavnoprávny výbor Národnej rady, Výbor Národnej rady pre
She's
verejnú
proposing
správu
that
a
the following
regionálny
committees
rozvoj
are
a
discussing the
Výbor
law, the
Národnej
Constitutional
rady pre
Committee,
ľudské práva a
the
národnostné
Committee for
menšiny.
Human Rights and Ethnic
Za
Minorities,
gestorský výbor
and
navrhujem
the Coordination
Výbor
Committee is
Národnej
going
rady
to
pre
be
verejnú správu a regionálny
the
rozvoj.
Committee on Public
Odporúčam,
Matters
aby
and
predmetný
Regional
návrh zákona výbory
regional
prerokovali do
development.
30. apríla
I recommend
2021
that the committees do their debate by 30th, by April 30th, and that the law is debated by May 3rd. Mr. Speaker, please open the debate on this topic.
Para všeobecnú rozpravu,
I am opening the
do
debate.
ktorej som dostal 3
I have
písomné prihlášky.
received
Pán poslanec
three
Dostal, pán poslanec Gimeši, pani
representatives who are going to speak. Mr. Dostal, Mrs. Leszczynska, and
Nech sa
another
páči,
representative.
Pán poslanec Dostal.
All right, Representative Dostal, the floor is yours.
Slovo.
Dear Minister, dear reporting representative, dear colleagues, Fico, the former Prime Minister, Slota and Mečiar, other politicians, have completely screwed up the Act on Citizenship in 2010. And the result is that 3,500 citizens of Slovakia have lost their citizenship against their will. Even though the Constitution says very clearly that no one may be deprived of their citizenship against their will. This was not the case in the past 10 years in Slovakia. The submitted amendment is a try to correct this change by Fico and Slota Mečiar, these politicians. This is an attempt which is in accordance with the new government's program, and it's an amendment, it's a bill that is going to solve a part of the problem that Fico, Slota and Mečiar have created. It's an attempt that is not going far enough. Even after having this law, Slovak citizens will still lose their citizenship against their will. There will be less of them who will lose their Slovak citizenship as right now. But they will still continue to lose their citizenship. Even though they will not want to lose their citizenship. So this problem caused by Fico, Slota and Mečiar won't be solved. It will only be lessened. In 2010, the Hungarian Parliament, Orbán's parliament changed the Hungarian citizenship law and made it possible for Hungarian minorities get Hungarian citizenship, even for the minorities here in Slovakia, without the fact that these people live in Hungary. In Slovakia, there was controversy. There was a change of this. It caused a change of this law. In fear that Hungarians in Slovakia will en masse ask for and request Hungarian citizenship, and then this would cause a problem. And so shortly before the elections, the coalition of three parties, Smer, SNS, and Hazades, changed the law on Czechoslovak citizenship, and they amended it, making it so that a citizen would lose their citizenship if they accept another citizenship, if they gain another citizenship abroad of a foreign citizenship by an act of will. So since then, Slovak citizens have been losing their Slovak citizenship against their will. Only a minimum of these people, only a small part of these people, are Slovak citizens who are losing their Slovak citizenship because they gain Hungarian citizenship. We have a duty to report naturalization abroad, but obviously if someone naturalizes abroad doesn't report it, Slovakia will never know. The authorities in Slovakia don't have a way to know. The law as it was written, as it was approved, as it is now works. The status quo is that it was they were aiming for the fox, but they intentionally shot Mary, and so it's not affecting the right people who they intended to affect, and then lost their Slovak citizenship. So the most updated information is that 3,541 citizens have lost their citizenship, mostly due to Czech citizenship, 800 people, German citizenship, Austrian citizenship, British citizenship, American citizenship, or Hungarian citizenship, and so on. So the whole reason why this law was approved, Hungarian citizenship, is somewhere in between American and Swiss citizenship, and the reasons why people have lost their citizenship. Obviously, there were attempts to remedy this. These attempts took place during Iveta Radičova's government, which was shortly after this change. Back then, certain coalition representatives, Procházka and 4 representatives from the Olano party have blocked this amendment, and therefore the law was not changed, not remedied. Then during Radičova's government, there were other representatives, including the current prime minister was a representative at the time. There were multiple proposals which would change the law, but so that people who have been living abroad for a longer period of time would not lose their citizenship, but these proposals were not approved. Then for 8 years we had the government of Fico, and they did not change the law. They did not even allow Slovaks who live abroad to not lose their citizenship when they naturalize. Not even the Constitutional Court has decided this, because it basically refused to hear the case. And currently the government is coming up with an attempt with a proposal, which is that one will not lose their citizenship under the provision if a citizen has naturalized, if in the country where they naturalized they had a registered stay or an otherwise registered stay for at least 5 years. So the wrong, incorrect matter, insensitive towards our own citizens, in my opinion, unconstitutional rule that Slovak citizens lose Slovak citizenship against their own will is not going to be rescinded. It's only going to be amended with an exemption. This exemption is very strict. It's stricter than the attempts that we had at remedying this brought forward by Matovic as a representative or Representative Fico back in 2011, or I'm not certain about the year. So in essence, the law will not change. It will only be a little more balanced. It will no longer be about the fox being shot, about Mary being shot instead of the fox. But the shot will be getting fox. The fox will be getting shot, but not really, because it will still concern Slovak citizens who would like, or it will not concern Slovak citizens who got Hungarian citizenship but did not report it, but also citizens who live abroad, then got citizenship abroad, but they only lived there for 4.5 years. But these people will lose their citizenship even under this amendment. I don't think this is enough. I consider this a problem that Slovak citizens will lose their citizenship even against their will. And I respect that there are countries that don't allow dual citizenship, countries which say that you can only have our citizenship, you cannot have any other citizenship. And then there's countries which allow dual citizenship or multiple citizenship. I think it's a better model, but both models are legitimate. What is not legitimate is a solution where the Slovak Republic is not concerned that someone has more citizenships, or that if a foreign citizen naturalizes in Slovakia, he will have dual citizenship, or if a Slovak citizen has been living abroad for longer, he will also be a dual citizen. But the problem will be if that citizen has only been living abroad for shorter, or not lived there for a very long time. In my opinion, this new solution is still not unconstitutional and against the Article 5 of the Slovak Constitution, which says that no one may be deprived of their citizenship against their will. And the Constitution says no one may be deprived, but the law says that it's a loss. And I think this is only semantics, because to a citizen who does not wish to lose their Slovak citizenship, but they do, it won't mean, just because they want to nationalize abroad, it won't mean that they want to lose their Slovak citizenship. They will see these two words, these two meanings as the same, because they will no longer be citizens. I think that this conflict regarding the Citizenship Act is about how we look at Hungary. If I were a politician in Hungary, I would be in the opposition. And I wouldn't be fond, but I'm not. I'm representative in Slovakia, and I'm worried about the Slovak laws and how Slovakia treats its own citizens, including citizens which are ethnic minorities. For me, it's a domestic topic, not an international topic. that is relevant to the Constitution, and it's my belief that we should not take anyone's citizenship against their will if they don't wish to. Hungarians living in Slovakia are an integral part of this country. Minorities are the wealth of a country, and we should understand them so. We should respect that people may have an identity which has a relationship to both Slovakia and Hungary or another country. Only a few weeks ago we had a controversial debate about having two ethnicities in the census. I said that we should have this option to have two ethnicities, that one can have a relation to multiple ethnicities. I also believe that one may have a relation to one or more states, and therefore dual or multiple citizenships. As the minister has said, there is another topic other than the loss of citizenship. It also involves the question of giving back citizenship to those citizens who lost their Slovak citizenship against their will because of the problem because of the act that was approved in 2010. And the debate again was whether it was 3 years or 5 years or some other period or some other requirement, or going back to the status quo in 2010. So we believe it's important to remedy this and to give those people who lost their citizenship a way back using the same requirements as for people who wouldn't lose citizenship anymore. To these people, we should return their lost citizenship. So Section 7, subsection 2 is going to be amended. And these people will not have to reside in Slovakia. So people will be given citizenship who lost their citizenship by naturalizing and had a residence in the state where they naturalized for at least 5 years. I'd like to point our attention to the fact that, with regard to whom we are going to give citizenship back, I think that there should be no discretion on behalf of the state. I think we should give back citizenship to everyone who fulfills the requirements with no discretion. And so the requirement would be that there will be no 8-year stay, as there is, to a citizen who was not a Slovak citizen, but one of their parents, grandparents, or great-grandparents were a Czechoslovak citizen born in the territory of Slovakia. So this is our provision right here for everyone. So we will have a paradoxical situation where a part of applicants for Slovak citizenship, if they had ancestors from Slovakia, will be able to apply for Slovak citizenship after a month or after a day for Slovak citizenship, and they will be dual citizens. But if a Slovak citizen moves to another country, and in the same way they gain citizenship in another country, then he will lose his Slovak citizenship. So we will be granting citizenship to certain applicants, in less time than 8 years, less time than 5 years, that we will require for others, but we will sanction our own Slovak citizens who would like to naturalize abroad. So what he said was basically saying that there was a paradox that someone with ancestry could apply on day one and they will have dual citizenship, but if someone from Slovakia goes abroad, does the same thing, then they'll lose their Slovak citizenship. So and he's saying the solution would be that if we just remove the lost provisions altogether, so that there will be no one who would lose their citizenship. And then there's another question, which is for people who have these ancestors. We should not ask for residence, because what is the difference between someone asking for citizenship after a month or if someone does not have a residence permit? There is no difference in practice. A huge part of people from Slovakia live in other countries, in European countries, also in the United States and Canada, in other countries. And this provision is not on an ethnic principle, so it's not only about ethnic Slovaks, but from everyone, even Hungarians who have roots from Slovakia, which is good. And these people who have a relation to Slovakia, who would like to be Slovak citizens and want to do that, we should do that even in a situation where they don't live in Slovakia, because migration is natural, it's normal that people from Slovakia live all over the world, and if they keep their Slovak citizenship, don't lose it, we should be glad that we have our compatriots abroad. We should not understand it as a problem, but as wealth, as a relation between Slovakia and other countries. And we should let these people get Slovak citizenship even without stay in Slovakia, without having a residence permit. Because it could be people who lost their Slovak or Czechoslovak citizenship against their will. Thank you. Thank you, Representative. We have 4 retorts. Representative Miroslav Sia. Thank you. I'd like to talk about 3 things. Representative Dostal, we cannot say with certainty that Hungarians were a small group of people, because Hungary does not give us information about people who naturalize. I think that's good, because why should they? So people who've admitted this, lost their citizenship, I think we should give citizenship back to them. And you said that no one against their will wants to lose their citizenship, but in other democracies, people lose their citizenship against their will. And it's also against their will under certain circumstances. Here, those circumstances were bad, but in certain circumstances you should lose your citizenship. I think that's right. Whether in Israel, USA, France, which is not true, by the way, but whatever. So it's not good when someone loses their citizenship against their will. There are certain circumstances in which that happens, and I think that's right. Then you said that if you were in Hungary, you would be in opposition. Well, Mr. Dostal, you were here in the opposition, you've criticized certain things, and now you're not criticizing them anymore. You are voting for them, and that's because this man is in the opposition, Dostal is in the coalition. And so now you are voting for the same things that you have criticized before. All right, the next retort is Representative Kočiš. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The colleague Suja has said a lot of things that I wanted to talk about. So, Dostal, I agree with you that ethnic minorities are wealth of the Slovak nation, and I really agree with this, and I will support this, because members of ethnic minorities are part of the Slovak nation. Foreign Slovaks and people who, for various reasons, have given up their Slovak citizenship or lost it, would welcome this change of the law. It's about 3,000 people. But then, constitutionally, there is a problem with citizens who are dual citizens. I have a hypothetical question. What if we are at war, if we have two states who are active, and so that this person is a citizen of both states, and both these states would have a drafting mandate, so hypothetically or practically, what would we do in such a situation where that person would have a duty to defend both those countries? So these two duties there would be these two duties between these towards both these states. So what would this person do? And which duty would they prefer? So maybe we're talking really hypothetically, but it's possible that this could happen, and just as citizens who accepted another citizenship knew that they would lose their Slovak citizenship, did so knowing these consequences. So maybe we shouldn't confuse these two things.
Pán poslanec Marian Kerry, nech sa páči.
And Representative Marian Kerry, thank you for the word. Mr. Dostal, your story began in 2010 when the National Council approved this law you say that the story began in 2010 in the Slovak Parliament, but this is wrong, because the story began when the Hungarian Parliament approved a law under which residents who have not lived in Hungary get Hungarian citizenship, and only then did we have the law as a reaction in Slovakia, because the Hungarian law talked about a ethnic principle, which is incorrect, by the way. I'm glad that you talked about Iveta Radičová and the representatives from Olano, which is the current coalition party. And I have to say you are right that thanks to this law, hundreds of people have lost their Slovak citizenship, but in 2015 we have introduced guidelines at the Ministry of Interior which gave a possibility to citizens who have lost their citizenship and give them a way back. I think the relations between Slovakia and Hungary are at very good are on a very high, very good level, which everyone should like. And I'm myself from a mixed family. And so, do you want to go back to before 2010, or do you just want to amend these guidelines that the ministry had in 2015? And in that way make it easier for people to get their lost citizenship back. All right, the representative Ondrej Dostal was going to reply to your retorts. Thank you for the reactions. Representative Kerry, yes, I'd like to go back to the status quo in 2010 when no one was losing their Slovak citizenship against their own will. You talked about the Hungarian law. I'm not proving the Hungarian law. But we are not talking about Slovak. We're not talking about Hungarian laws. We're talking about Slovak laws. This is what we should focus on. And I just like to say that in the past we have done the same thing. We have let foreign Slovaks gain citizenship in the past, something similar that the Hungarian government has done. And he said something about American Slovaks. I didn't catch it. And so I don't think this is a very good idea to have people lose their Slovak citizenship and then let them get their citizenship back. I don't think this is the right solution. Representative Kočiš, the example with military duty and with war, that's great, but there's a lot of people who have dual citizenship, so if this becomes a problem, if we fight with Czechia or Hungary, then there will be more people who will face these problems, but I don't expect such an absurd situation to ever happen. We are members of the European Union. I doubt that we are ever going to fight against each other. Obviously, if someone only has one citizenship, there are other countries which may deprive citizens of their citizenship if they nationalize abroad, but I assume their constitution does not have a ban on this practice. Representative Dimeši, you have the floor. Here, ladies and gentlemen, this is a Hungarian representative from the ruling Olano party. He's saying, I've been saying for a long time that Hungarians in Slovakia are second-class citizens, and this amendment from 2010 is proof of this, is evidence of this. And nothing will fix this, not even the amendment we're just talking about right now. My colleague Dostal has very extensively covered the history of this act, which came all the way to this situation. So let me just give you a perspective of a Hungarian who's living in Slovakia and who feels historical, ethnic, cultural, language, and familial ties to Hungary, despite I am a loyal citizen of Slovakia, and I don't want to change any of this. And I'd like to keep on living in Slovakia. I have to mention that when we criticize the Hungarian acts on citizenship, then this act is 80% copied from a Slovak law, from a former Slovak law which was valid until 2005, under which Slovakia actually gave citizenship to people living abroad. It was changed when there was a referendum in Hungary regarding this change on citizenship, and then definitely changed in 2010. Just so that Slovak Hungarians could not accept Hungarian citizenship, could not acquire Hungarian citizenship. It was targeted against Hungarians, and it was not successful at that. It was only 134 Hungarians who have lost their citizenship, who have reported their loss. Obviously, there was more people from Czechia, from Hungary, from Germany. So the main arguments to approve this amendment of the Act from 2010, there were approximately 4. Hungarian political parties could not do political campaigns in Slovak territory. This hoax has been shown to be false for 11 years now by the reality. No Hungarian party has ever had a political campaign in Slovakia, and even if they wanted to, because in the European Union they couldn't, or even if they wanted to, they could because of the European Union. Television is not limited by borders. You can have billboards wherever you want. You can do whatever you want, but you would never be able to prevent this from happening. So another argument is that Hungary wants to create new voters. I can tell you from reality that
Slovenskej
that
republiky, ktorí by si chceli prijať maďarské štátne občianstvo,
there's not very many Slovak citizens who would want Hungarian citizenship, who then was assumed by those who thought that this was going to happen en masse. It was up to 1,000 people, but this is just my opinion. I have no solid facts. Another argument against depriving people of their citizenship from people who, against their will, that if a Slovak citizen naturalizes, let's say in Hungary, Slovakia will never know about this. I don't know, and Slovakia should have an I'm not sure I understand what he's saying.
Tak Slovenská republika bez akýchkoľvek problémov bude mať prehľad o tom, že koľko takýchto občanov na jej území.
Oh, and if we let people naturalize without a loss, it will be much more transparent because people will be willing to self-report that they are dual citizens. I think that Kaliňák's, the former Minister of Interior's amendment about which made it simpler to get back lost citizenship was actually simpler, and we are only making it more strict by this amendment because we are proposing 5 years, whereas Kaliňák's, the Minister of Interior's proposal was much simpler. The proposal has been in force since 2015.
Politické programy strán Sloboda a Solidarita, ale aj obyčajní ľudia a nezávislé osobnosti.
So, in order to fulfill the promises of the coalition parties before the elections, who have all said that we want to return to the status quo before 2010, this is what Olano, the ruling party, has brought, and what we want to propose, and we would also bind ourselves we've also declared that we will make it easier for Slovaks living abroad to get Slovak citizenship, but the government's program mentions less reasons than what we were actually talking about before. The motivation of this whole process is an unsubstantiated fear of Hungarians in Slovakia, and cases of good practices, or even Ukraine or Serbia or Romania, are not helping because these countries have been promoting these policies to give to these policies where their own citizens from Serbia, from Korea, from Hungary or from Romania got Hungarian citizenship, and these countries allowed it. So I think that this was not a problem, and therefore it should not be a problem for us either. So I'd like to ask you, dear colleagues, to think about whether after 11 years the rules that we have right now, whether it's maybe time to lose this unsubstantiated fear, and whether it's time to let Slovak citizens who want to get citizenship of another country, even if they're in Slovakia, and not lose their Slovak citizenship, because nothing will happen to Slovakia or to Slovak sovereignty. Thank you.
Ďakujem na vaše vystúpenie. Evidujem 3 faktické poznámky. Uzatváram možnosť prihlásiť sa. Nech sa páči, pán poslanec Miroslav Suja.
All right, so we have 4 retorts. I don't believe that citizens of Hungarian ethnicity are second-class citizens, or that they feel that way. I think that during the last couple of years between the Hungarians and Slovaks in Slovakia are the relations are great. I think that the relations really are great. People are not discriminating among themselves, and I think they are much better than they used to be as they were in 2010. I have an aunt who's from Detva. She's Hungarian, and I don't believe in. Neither does she that she is a citizen of a second-class citizen. So I cannot believe this. I understand what you've said. But and I agree with you that it's good to have transparency, that Slovakia knows how many dual citizens, so that it's legal and official, how many ethnic Hungarians have a Hungarian citizenship. I think this would be good, and I don't see this as a threat. Thank you. As a threat. Right. Another retort from Kočiš, from Representative Kočiš. I think you're a pragmatic and realistically thinking person, but as Representative Suja has said, I really don't feel like ethnic Hungarians are second-class citizens. I have to categorically deny this. I have tens of friends who are from southern Slovakia, and I really don't feel like these citizens have this idea that they are second-class citizens. The reverse, actually. I think no other minority in Slovakia has the opportunities about culture, sport, as does the Hungarian minority in Slovakia. Because these times of Bugár and Slota, where there was a conflict between Slovaks and Hungarians, these times are long over, and these times are long over. And Slovakia and Hungary have above standard relations, and above standard relations even on mixed territories. Slovakia as a sovereign state should really have exact information about citizens who lost their Slovak citizenship, and to each application we should assess individually, and we should really adjudicate various risks and various threats, whether for the citizen or whether for the state, based on the citizenship he wants to obtain. So let's look at this pragmatically. Let's look at this practically, and let's not get too passionate about this. All right. Thank you for the floor, Mr. Speaker. Representative Gimishi, let me give you a specific question. How did you come to the conclusion that citizens of Slovakia who are of Hungarian ethnicity are second-class citizens? Because I have to categorically deny this. I've already said this in my retort to Representative Dostal, and I'll say it again. From 2005, I've been a representative in the local government in the Nitra region, and currently I am the deputy chairman of the local government in Nitra, which is an ethnically mixed region, counties of Levice, Komárno, Oršava. These counties are, there are a lot of people in these counties who are ethnically Hungarian, and I can assure you that from the budget of the local government, we give the same amount of money to the north as we do to the south. And I can assure you that we renovate roads in the same way, whether it's in the north or whether it's in the south. The north is ethnically Slovak, the south is ethnically Hungarian, which is my note. And so many schools, many Hungarian schools don't even have enough citizens. And when we talk about Hungarian schools or schools with Hungarian language, we keep these schools even if this makes little sense economically. So please don't try to reinvigorate the conflicts between Slovaks and Hungarians because they no longer exist. They no longer exist. So to answer your questions fully, I'm unfortunately not going to be able to do that in just 2 minutes. So just very quickly, let me say that why am I talking about this? Why this is my opinion? For instance, Hungarians living in Slovakia, or Germans living in Slovakia, we still consider them war criminals. For instance, the law from 1945 law is still in force because this law talks about Germans, Hungarians, traitors to the Slovak nation. This law from 1945 is still valid, it's still effective, and even to this day the courts keep applying this law when it comes to confiscation of property. According to the Constitution of the Slovak Republic, it says that we, the Slovak nation, we, the Slovak nation, including ethnic minorities, which implicitly excludes these ethnic minorities from the Slovak nations. Also look at how these regions have been created in southern Slovakia, how these counties have been created in southern Slovakia, and these counties are gerrymandered in a way in which the north and south is connected, which makes not much sense geographically. And so if you look at how the maps look, if you look at the Trnava region, if you look at the map, it's done in a way that Hungarians never have a majority. If you look at this law on citizenship, it was made in a way to exclude Hungarians. Right, his 2 minutes was up. Now the rapporteur, along with her speech, is going to have this chance to speak. Thank you very much, dear representative, dear minister, dear Mr. Speaker. After the law was made more strict in 2010, many people since that time have lost their Slovak citizenship. I think this is a huge burden, and the government has bound itself to remedy this wrong that was committed. We can definitely discuss about improving and making the law more precise, making the amendment more precise. And there's a big ask because due to Brexit, many people who live in the UK who have been messaging me, so let me quote: Is it possible that you may change the law? I don't want to lose my Slovak citizenship. Do you think there will be any negotiations? Do you think? I understand that we have COVID, but you could start to solve this. The Czechs, the Poles, they're allowed to have dual citizenship, but only our country does it this way for almost 10 years or for 11 years. Let me give an answer to our citizens that the time has finally come. This is news that they've been expecting for 11 years. The law is being debated in Parliament today, and I believe that along with everyone else, we can create such a law that no one would lose their Slovak citizenship against their own will. The law on state citizenship from 2011 created a new way of loss of citizenship after naturalization elsewhere, based on someone's will. So naturalization was based on someone's will. Members of the ethnic Hungarian minority were seen as a threat just because they wanted dual citizenship. Citizens who live in mixed areas live in harmony. They didn't have a problem, but politicians had to create a conflict. The potential mass naturalization of Hungarian due to this perceived mass because of these fears that people will get Hungarian citizenship in mass and would create a lot of Hungarian citizens. The government has very quickly, just in one day, in a couple of hours, passed a new Slovak Citizenship Act by 90 votes out of 150. So it was accepted. It was very quickly adopted, and according to the statistics, there were 3,470 people who have lost their citizenship. Most commonly because naturalizing in Czechia, 870 people. Then Germany, 700 people, Austria, then the UK, 378, the US, 178, Hungary, 132, and then another 25 countries. So from reality, from practice, that the effects of this amendment were felt by all citizens when they naturalized, based on their own will, equally. Within the EU, only Estonian law is more strict on citizenship, which only accepts naturalization, or which only accepts imposition of citizenship by birth or by marriage. Countries which restrict dual citizenship, there are 4 countries that do from the EU: Austria, Lithuania, Estonia, and Slovakia. On the other side, the most benevolent countries when granting citizenship are Cyprus, the Czech Republic, Ireland, Hungary, and Romania, which except the general requirements. They don't have additional requirements if their own citizens or if foreigners acquire citizenship. They don't have additional requirements for dual citizenship. This amendment is good news for foreign Slovaks. It's good news for Slovak citizens, and I believe and I hope that we go back to the year 2010 and no one will lose their citizenship against their own will. So we have 4 retorts, and Representative Sloboda, thank you for the floor. I'd like to thank the colleague for this comparison to other countries. This is very informative, and we can look at other countries, and unfortunately Representative Suja is not here. He would definitely be able to retort, but he's not here. All right, now the Milan Vetrak, the representative, is going to talk. Thank you for the floor. I'm glad, Representative, that you went back to history when in this House we approved the law that we finally have the chance to remedy. It's unbelievable that they approved this law within one day back in 2010, and now our colleagues are talking about our quick approval of laws, but this is clearly hypocritical when you look at how they approved very important laws. And it's been said many times, whether by Representative Dostal or Representative Dimeshi, that the requirement to cancel the ban, to rescind the ban on dual citizenship, is one of the most significant things pronounced by foreign Slovaks, by our diaspora.
Ako povedala pani poslankyňa Pleštinská, stále tu priestor na vylepšenie tohto zákona.
Representative Pleštinska said there is a lot of room to improve this law, and I would like to be one of those representatives who do improve this law, because I think there's a lot of room for improvement, and I want to rescind this ban on dual citizenship, but then the Slovak Foreign Service, Slovak diplomacy would actually have to do something, because they have done nothing to do anything to negotiate with Hungary. So we should ask them why they haven't done anything to improve this. We should also ask the Office on Slovaks living abroad why they also haven't done anything. Thank you. Thank you for the floor. Thank you, colleague, for bringing this up. And you have pointed out, what I'd like to point out, that even though this amendment that will bring certain complications, I think this is very positive, especially when it comes to dual citizenship, for people who have been living abroad for over 5 years, also citizens from the Czech Republic who will be exempt from the Slovak language requirement, and also letting former citizens naturalize. This amendment is in the government's program, and it was one of our sort of program points of our program in our party, Sme rodina, which is also a coalition party. And so if we do approve this law, we're going to make our own citizens' lives better. Now, Representative Kočis with the last retort. Thank you for the floor. Dear colleague, just as my colleague has mentioned, the simplified legislative proceedings for quick approval of laws is always more harmful than it is useful. So this law was approved in these quick proceedings, but it will never be like what this coalition is doing, as they are improving laws quickly in a non-standard situation. Slovaks who live abroad, with whom I talk to a lot, and we have discussed this very intensely. And they knew, these people, these Slovaks abroad, knew very well that if they naturalize abroad, they will lose the Slovak citizenship. And many have balanced what they will lose and what they will gain. So everyone who accepted this citizenship knew very well what the consequences would be. So to go back into history and to talk about this law being approved in quick proceedings, and then this was to the harm of Slovaks living abroad or Slovak citizens. I cannot agree to this. I cannot agree with this, because every person who naturalized abroad is responsible for their own actions. So I understand that you want to go back to the status quo that we had. You don't want to restrict anyone. You want to go back to the status quo, but you really need to look at the interests that we have, and Slovak diplomacy, the Foreign Service should do more in this matter. Representative Pleštinska is now going to respond. Thank you for the floor, dear colleagues. Let me respond to these retorts. Thank you for all your retorts. We are in the first reading, and I believe that in further debate, this law will be improved. And in fact, I mentioned that these laws, such important laws, were approved based on some threats. That they were approved in these quick proceedings. It was true, and I want to say that as our colleagues here are blaming us for using quick proceedings to approve laws during a pandemic, they managed to approve such an important law in just one day. The deputy speaker, Mr. Blanár, is going to speak. Thank you very much. We are debating a law which did not have to be here, and I want to respond to what my colleagues have said, that to return back to the status quo that was here, this is what they've talked about. We just can't go back to the status quo, because if we wanted to go back to the status quo, then Hungary would have to rescind their law, which made it possible to grant citizenship to people who are ethnically part of this ethnic minority. This is the only way that we can go back to the status quo. We need to say this clearly, because this law on state citizenship was amended because Hungary did this. We are Slovakia. The government that was here had to react. This is a fact. These are the basics that we have to go off of. Thus, this law was approved, and this law was passed. It was a response to the Hungarian law, and we knew at that time that it could bring these negative matters, and I believe none of the people who passed this law were not happy about these negative effects, and we're not happy about it now that these Slovak citizens lost their Slovak citizens. But we need to say the objective truth that today there are other countries to which Slovaks go and maybe have connected their life to. Their rules are such that if they naturalize, they lose their second citizenship, because they don't allow dual citizenship. This means that these are facts that we did take into consideration when we prepared the law, which was to react to the Hungarian law, which was passed at the time. So that's why the governments which followed did a change in 2015 by introducing guidelines which would allow all those who lost their citizenship to apply to have their citizenship reinstated with certain rules. According to the statistics, maybe the minister has better statistics, but if I remember correctly, during the validity of this law, over 5,000 citizens have lost their citizenship. At the same time, based on the guidelines, around 2,000 applicants got their citizenship back. I'd like to say these are just some estimates. We have to look at the exact numbers, because this was a while ago. So there was some improvement. It's still a problem that we need to solve. And so that I can talk about this proposal by the Minister of Interior. It looks like that you actually based your law on the guidelines that we passed in 2015. So I'd like you to talk about this, because these guidelines talk about that the minister, when considering an application for citizenship of a former citizen of Slovakia, will look at the reasons why that person lost their Slovak citizenship, and look at the circumstances in which they naturalized. especially at the requirement that they had permitted stay in the country where they naturalized. These are the guidelines that we had in 2015, that we passed in 2015. So looking at the proposal, it looks like this discretionary possibility that is just guidelines turn this into law, and so that there's less discretion. Let me know whether this was what you tried to do. But there's something that we need to discuss and then we need to think about, because this verbiage that you proposed, that you say that the applicant had permitted stay, or registered stay, or otherwise registered stay when they naturalized for at least 5 years, and they showed evidence that this was true. And so this is the significant question that I'd like to ask the minister. What's an otherwise registered stay? So that something like this could not be abused. It should be explicitly defined that 5 years is a period that could show relation to another country. So that it's not just some ethnic reasons why you get citizenship, because you had Hungarian ancestors, because this is what we're talking about. But there should be some standards. These standards you introduced in the justification, because it was based on some European standards. That you were talking about 12 years, then you went to 5 years. I suppose we can discuss about this. 5 years is a usual period, but from what I have here, that citizenship is a relatively permanent legal relation of someone to another state. So, Minister, maybe this is an unexpected conclusion, but I have to say this, because you have a press conference that you're going to have we have a press conference which is titled "We are remedying Fico's law, and we are getting rid of bureaucracy. We're making it easier for businesses." Is this serious? Are you serious? Are you even serious about remedying Fico's law? But you're actually using the base on your law is actually based on guidelines passed by Fico. And if this is not a joke, then I don't understand. So what did Fico actually do wrong? Because Slovakia actually defended its interests. We have this law because of a law that was extraterritorially valid from Hungary. It's the basic responsibility of any prime minister to defend the interests of that country. So your press conference cannot. We cannot talk about you presenting a positive thing. So you're basically saying that he's being a hypocrite because they're using Fico's guidelines to improve the law, and then they say that they're actually rescinding Fico's law, which is not true. He said that it would be more honest if they said that if they rescinded it. So Minister, let's discuss what an otherwise registered stay is, so that this is not something that people could abuse. So we will not support this law in the first reading, and in the second reading we will want an amendment And we want a guarantee that no one could abuse something like this, so that that person, so that this law that is bad, that Hungary has passed, that affects Slovak citizens, we did the right thing. So your press conference that you're remedying Fico's law, which is punishing Slovaks, is so ridiculous that I didn't catch the last part. And this was a representative from the opposition party, from Fico's party, from the party which actually passed the law back in 2010. So now, a retort. Mr. Speaker, I've never heard, or I haven't heard such schizophrenia in a very long time in this House. You are saying that another member of the government should influence Hungary to change its citizenship law, and at the same time you're saying that the Hungarian law is affecting Slovak matters. This isn't schizophrenia. Then I don't know what it is, because the Hungarian law is not valid in Slovakia. But if Slovakia does the same thing,
tak mi to prosím vás vysvetlite, ako ste toto mysleli, lebo toto podľa mňa
so please explain what you meant, because no one can understand this in this House.
Všetky argumenty, na základe ktorých ste tento blbý zákon
all the arguments under which you passed this bad law, I have just talked about and proved you wrong. So don't talk about how Hungary is extraterritorially affecting Slovakia, because all of the things that you use to base your law on have been proven wrong by myself. Thank you for the floor. You are going from the from a basis which you'd like us to accept, which is not true. You have judged for yourself that the Hungarian law is bad for us, and I suppose we should first discuss whether this Hungarian law is really bad, and whether it is so bad that we should discuss it, even that we should even consider this law. No, we have to correct the wrongs that you have committed. And if someone is saying that this is a problem with you. We have punished our own citizens because these people did not just decide on their own to naturalize. Because there are certain things such as being born or getting married. There are circumstances in which you just have to accept citizenship of another country. So in many cases this was not voluntary at all. It's regardless of whether it was 3,000 or 5,000. What matters is that this was unjust, and we'd like to correct this. And the guidelines, these guidelines were a result of the conflict between the Foreign Minister Lajčák and the Prime Minister Fico. And this was something where the citizens could ask the merciful ministry to restore their citizenship. What did Mr. Lajčák, the foreign minister, actually get from Hungary? Nothing at all. Okay, Mr. Dostal is going to have a retort. The representative Blanár. I was critical of this. I am critical of this amendment because it's an attempt to correct a wrong by Fico's government. In my opinion, it's not a sufficient attempt. This will not be a full remedy, just a partial remedy. But yes, it's an attempt to remedy what you've done to the Act on Citizenship in 2010. And if we were to talk about what you just mentioned, this guideline of Minister of Interior Kaliňák, which talked about how someone can actually regain their Slovak citizenship. You can't even be serious. No such guidelines would be required if the law made it clear that Slovak citizens do not lose citizenship. If you've done that, we wouldn't have 3,600 people who lost their citizenship. We would have maybe 100 people who lost their citizenship. But you couldn't even change this law. You only changed it by some guidelines that the ministry had. I think this is impolite and ridiculous. That we give someone that we make people lose their citizenship, and then the merciful minister Kaliňák actually introduces guidelines which lets them mercifully get their citizenship back.
Ďakujem za všetky faktické poznámky.
Thank you for the retorts.
Pán Dimeši, ja vám neberiem váš názor, ale s vami
Dimeši, I cannot take your opinion from you, but I disagree with you. Disagree with you strongly, and you're only looking at this from your perspective, and I keep on saying, and my opinion continues to be that we had to accept this law, and it was an unambiguous reaction to Hungary's steps, where they let ethnic Hungarians in neighboring countries get Hungarian citizenship just based on their ethnicity. This is a fact, this as much as you like to deny it, and this was something on the basis of which the government had to act, and it's also a fact that if Mr. Dostal is saying that Minister Kaliňák's effort was not enough, it's also a fact that based on these guidelines introduced by our Minister Kaliňák, the current minister, the coalition minister, is coming up with his proposal. That's also a fact. We are ready to discuss these provisions, but I wanted to get a specific answer about something that is in the law, so that it's not abused. We can discuss about the 5 years. We can make it 10 years. It's 8 years in Slovakia if you'd like to get Slovak citizenship. So let's make it 8 years. Let's talk about this. But we cannot have this vague term where someone registers their stay in Hungary for 5 years, gets a fake agreement, and then they won't lose their citizenship. We want to make sure that this is not something that can be abused. And so let's talk about this. But I am 100% behind. I keep saying I keep my opinion.
Pán podpredseda parlamentu, teraz sa pýtam, či sa hlási do rozpravy niekto ústne.
Is there anyone who would like to submit a speech? There will be 2 representatives who will have a speech. Mr. Dostal will be first. I'll definitely accept a pivo once all this mess is over. Mr. Minister, dear colleagues, I'd like to respond to some of the things that were said during the debate that I couldn't react because I had no time. Mr. Deputy Chairman Blanard, this is a deep misunderstanding. That this law was created based on the guidelines.
Rovnako vôľa nadobudnúť občianstvo iného štátu neznamená automaticky vôľu stratiť slovenské občianstvo. A my nesankcionujeme ani spáchanie priestupku alebo trestného činu, vraždy napríklad stratou slovenského občianstva. I
believe we should be back up. Can everyone hear me? Can everyone hear me?
Skôr by som sa teraz chcel vrátiť ešte k tomu,
Okay, awesome. All right, so Mr. Dostal was just talking about something that was very important. Unfortunately, the data on my phone ran out, so I had to just buy some more. And what Mr. Dostal was talking about was that we cannot interpret someone's will to naturalize in another country with their will to lose their citizenship. He said that such a person knows they are going to lose their citizenship, but it's not the same as wanting to lose their citizenship. So he made this very important distinction between being aware of the fact that once you get a citizenship somewhere else, you would lose your citizenship, but it's not the same as wanting to lose your citizenship. I thought that was a very important distinction that the others were conflating. Currently, he's... so let me just get back to interpreting. So I'm afraid we cannot change how Hungary behaves towards other people. We can solve how we treat our own citizens and how we treat others, and we can make it so that no one will lose their citizenship against their will. What Representative Pleštinskaya said, I can only agree to. No one should lose their citizenship against their will. And so even if the law is changed in this way, it will only mean that less people will lose their citizenship, but there will still be people who lose their citizenship even though they don't want to. One more thing that I'd like to talk about is our diaspora, our foreign Slovaks. Pay attention now. The possibility that they get citizenship without the 8 years that is generally required. I welcome this, and Representative Blanar, this was the Slovak law until 2005, made it possible for foreign Slovaks to get citizenship without the fact that they get citizenship. So this was actually the status quo in 2005, that it was possible for foreign Slovaks to get Slovak citizenship without residency. So Representative Blanar, we have actually done the same thing as Hungary has done. This proposal is that if someone applies for Slovak citizenship, someone whose ancestors were Czechoslovak citizens born in Slovakia, we can grant them citizenship without the 8-year stay. And I think, apart from the question of losing Slovak citizenship, which is a more important, more pressing issue, we should talk about whether this group of people, whether we require this group of people to have residence, or whether we make it possible for them to get Slovak citizenship without this residency requirement. Because these people who have a Slovak identity, maybe not an ethnic identity, but they have a relation to Slovakia, they have ancestors from Slovakia, and maybe if their destiny was slightly different, they'd still have Slovak citizenship. But we had a very dramatic 20th century, and we had two totalitarian regimes, the Cold War, and the very specific circumstances in certain countries. I don't think we should be afraid of people who have Slovak origins, of Slovak roots, and they want to be Slovak citizens. I don't think this is bad. I think this is good for Slovakia, and we should do this within the second reading. Thank you. I have 3 retorts to your speech. Representative Kočiš, please go ahead. Thank you for the floor, Mr. Speaker. colleague, I don't think that you've correctly talked about knowing and wanting to, because every citizen of Slovakia who has Slovak citizenship and lives abroad had to balance and had to think about what this naturalization will bring to his life, what it will take from his life, and this means that I cannot agree with your analogy that these citizens were forced to give up citizenship. And I cannot say that this is a standard law. There's a lot of disadvantages, but this quick approval was very, very controversial. Your laws were also approved in quicker approval, were also very controversial, but this law was a reaction to the law that was passed by Hungary, by the Hungarian parliament, which led Slovak citizens who were ethnic Hungarians to get Hungarian citizenship. So this law was really based on a defense, on protection of Slovakia, so that Slovak citizens who have Hungarian ethnicity wouldn't accept Slovak citizenship. So whether this caused some damage or whether it caused domestic problems is difficult to say. That would be for a long debate, but I don't think we should really change this so radically. We should probably let this happen as it goes. Thank you for the floor. So there is this question, and from certain representatives, Mr. Dostal talked about it as well, whether this law as it is, this amendment as it is, whether it is good, whether we should pass it now. We have been discussing about this law for many months. It's been ready since the autumn. We've been debating it, just not in the parliament. And the parties of the current coalition, the ruling coalition, have promised to their constituents that they will pass this law. So they do have this legitimacy to pass this law. So we shouldn't have a debate on whether or not to pass it, because if you go abroad and you ask Slovaks who live abroad what they're asking us to do, that they have two things, which is to be able to vote electronically, and also the other thing is that we allow dual citizenship. They have no other. They're not asking us for anything else, and so we shouldn't debate whether or not we should pass it, but whether we should pass it now. This is something that we have to do. And let me just talk about why I talked about diplomacy. So some of the speakers today have said that we should solve this diplomatically, and I think it's a valid question to ask what Slovak diplomacy has done over the past 11 years and what it has done over the past year, because the fact that we have this proposal as it is a result of what Slovak diplomacy, the Slovak Foreign Service has been telling us. Now, Representative Osursky, thank you for the floor. I've never been in such a difficult position as I have been in this discussion. Let me just make my small addition. We were here in the opposition defending the citizens' right to not lose their citizenship, and we also pointed out that taking away citizenship from people is only in our history under the communists and under the fascists, and they have stripped Jews of their citizenship, and they've stripped them of their property. They shipped them off to concentration camps. The same was done by communists, it was unconstitutional. But at the same time, it's also not right what was the cause of this problem, and that's giving away citizenship. And if I look at the relationship between Slovakia and Hungary, and if I look at the question what Slovak diplomacy has done, well, you always need two. So it's great to talk about Slovakia, but what has Hungary done? Also, if you look at the Russian Federation, they have been giving away citizenship. They have been giving citizenship to people in eastern Ukraine. And so this giving away citizenship may have a bad consequence in that they will want to give away citizenship to people in these countries, and we're only a step from a Third Reich and from Henlein, which is referring to the Sudeten Germans of Czechoslovakia, who were some of which who have supported Hitler in his annexation of Czechoslovakia. Now, Dostal is retorting. It was accepted at the end of Fico's second government, and you have said that it's protection of Slovakia against the fact that Slovaks can accept citizenship of another country. I deeply disagree with you that we have to protect Slovakia from its own citizens because for some reasons that they consider important, they decide to naturalize elsewhere. I suppose we won't be able to find common ground on whether it is a will, because being aware of a consequence is not the same as wanting that consequence. If I want to buy a red car, it doesn't mean that I have the will to lose Slovak citizenship. If I know that a bad law says that by buying a red car I will lose Slovak citizenship, it's not the same. It's not the same act of will. Representative Vetrák, I'm keeping my position that we cannot solve the situation diplomatically. We will not be able to convince Hungary to influence them, and this is why I support dual citizenship and what Slovaks abroad have been asking for. And I will not be able to react to the rest. And the last speaker is going to be Representative Dimeši. Did I pronounce your name right? Yes, you did. Thank you for the floor, Mr. Speaker. It's not really going to be a speech. It's really going to be a question to Deputy Speaker Blanar, and really just reactions to the retorts. So I'll just use this longer time that I have. Before, I have to emphasize that there's no such things as European standards in granting citizenship, because there's a European Convention on granting citizenship which talks about each country having discretion in how they determine their citizenship rules. So let me just go back to Representative Blanar. You have criticized this amendment in the sense that we can give citizenship back to someone who presents documents that they've had this permitted stay, and you're worried that they'll be abused. I have to point out that 134 people have gained Hungarian citizenship. It's mostly women who have married to Hungary. So let me ask you, do you think these 134 people are a security threat to Slovakia? This is my question. Thank you.
V zmysle paragrafu 28 zákona o rokovacom poriadku požiadal o vystúpenie v rozprave pán podpredseda Juraj Blanár, nech sa páči.
So the deputy speaker Blanár is going to have a retort. Thank you for the floor. I'm glad that this is a very substantive discussion, and even if we have different opinions, but this is part of politics. So let me talk about. let me just take something.
Pán kolega Dimeši,
dear Mr. Colleague Dimeši, dear colleague Dimeši, let me just say it once again, so that you understand. I have quoted first the guidelines that our government passed, which talks about being aware of the residence of that person abroad. And so the proposal, the amendment that is now being discussed, talks about someone having permitted stay or registered stay, and there's something here that goes above and beyond to what we've had, and I've talked about it, and it's the otherwise registered stay. I want to know what is an otherwise registered stay, so that we know exactly what we're talking about. This is all I want to know. Permitted registered stay can be documented. Otherwise it has to be faked, and that is as a crime. That's a criminal offense. But what does this otherwise registered stay mean? Because that's something you could fake. So and I talked about the 5 years or the 8 years that we were talking about. So that's just a little bit to explain what I meant. To my colleague Dostal, Mr. Dostal, I understand that you have proposed amendments twice or three times. This is your agenda. I understand this. This is your political right. But you keep on omitting the most basic fact, which is that someone has an offer of citizenship without even setting foot in the country where they will naturalize, or maybe they will have 1 or 2 days of permanent stay in that country, and this was the reason why this whole situation happened. Now, let me just go back to what Mr. Osusky has said. I've become used to Mr. Osusky always ending his remarks with Nazism or fascism or communism, but I have to agree with him that Hitler had the law that Henlein's followers, ethnic Germans in Czechoslovakia before World War II, could obtain German citizenship within Czechoslovakia, even if they never had stay in Germany. And we have to agree that this is not a standard matter. I suppose we will agree on this point.
A nemohli ho mať, povedzme, len preto, lebo tá krajina povedal, že nemôžete mať dve štátne občianstva. Tuším, že je to Rakúsko napríklad.
So for instance, Austria has this approach where it's only when they only let naturalize when you have residence in the particular country, and so basically this law is really just what we had in our guidelines back in 2015. So this is my approach, my opinion. So let's not blindly defend something that we had to do. No, we had to do this. Everyone's being a Monday morning quarterback, but we had to react at that point. And I think it was right that we even employed the quick procedure to pass this law at the time. Thank you. There will be 5 retorts to your speech. So Representative Ondrej dostal. Mr. Speaker, I don't think we had to react. I think the reaction was inadequate. And just to answer your questions, we have to wait until the second reading because these formalities, you don't like this phrase, otherwise registered stay. The proposal of the law, the amendment, talked about fulfilling the requirements under that guidelines, under those guidelines that you had in 2015. Let me just quote to you from those guidelines. So, and those guidelines actually say the same thing because they talk about a permitted stay, a registered stay, or an otherwise registered stay.
Ktorú 13. januára 2011 do Národnej rady Slovenskej republiky predložili poslanci Robert Fico, Vladimír Fajč a Dušan Čaplovič.
And this was also a part of the law that was proposed by Fico and Representative Čaplovič, and you actually voted for a proposal, for this proposal. So yes, it's an inspiration. But I suppose this is the reason why it's in the current proposal. But if you have a problem with this term, otherwise registered stay, it was a part of the proposal that your own chairman proposed, and you didn't object back then, and you actually voted for it. Mr. Speaker, every state has their own legislation when it comes to registered or permitted or otherwise registered stay. So we cannot actually look at all the different names in which these resident permits or resident stays are called. So thus we have this vague term. But let me just react to this one last thing. You're saying that you had to react. You didn't have to react the same way that Romania and Serbia did not react. So they actually treat their citizens as first-class citizens. And you, but I don't mean you in particular. I mean your party and your coalition partners at the time. You didn't understand that the Hungarians who live in Hungary were actually the same Hungarians that live in Hungary, except we live in Slovakia. And what you talk about, what you have called giving away citizenship, and you made a comparison to Russia or to Nazi Germany is absolutely ridiculous. These countries are in the European Union. They're not at war. These comparisons are relevant, and I think this is just politics and nothing else. Thank you.
Ďakujem za slovo. Mne to je úplne jedno, či za Ficovej vlády tamto slovíčko bolo alebo nie.
I really don't care whether Fico's government had that term or not.
Jednoznačne to slovo nemalo byť. Zákon som sa predtým vyjadroval.
I really think that word shouldn't be there. The vague thing. But this other word has no reason to be there. People should not have to figure it out on their own. And there should be no room for abuse. And I agree with the deputy chairman, with the deputy speaker. And so, if you want to put these really vague terms into the law, it's not something we should do. And whether we should react or not react. And so other ends well, like it has in Romania, or it doesn't end well, like it has in Ukraine. And so how do you know? So how do you know these borders will not be affected? We are opening this question for no reason. in an area where we believe these people, and I believe these people actually coexist fairly well. And I think this can only worsen our relations. The Russians give passports to Ukrainians who are ethnically Russian. Ukrainians give it to Russians. Everyone does this, and nowhere it was good. Nowhere it brought good consequences. So either there was no reaction, or the Ukrainian fighting units are not just on the Russian border; they're also on the Hungarian border. Which, if you didn't understand, I didn't understand it either. We should talk about three things when it comes to the registered stay. So permanent stay in the country, the relations to that country, and whether they speak the language. I think these are the three basic aspects for someone who wants to acquire another citizenship. If they really want to do that, if they really feel as a citizen of another state, then these three things should be adhered to. But many citizens who live abroad, who are Slovak citizens, who have been living there for a long time, and they've been living there before 2010 and after 2010, they either accepted the citizenship of that state because it was comfortable, and they have no interest in getting back Slovak citizenship. And I know this from personal talks with people, or the citizenship was given up. They lost it because they decided to live in the given country permanently or for a long time, and to be able to take advantage of all the privileges of their new country. And my colleague Vetrak actually talked about Slovaks who live abroad who want to be able to vote, whether by mail or electronically, and these Slovaks abroad want to take part in public life in Slovakia. But I don't think now is the time to open this ethnic question. And now the last retort to this speech.
Z môjho pohľadu oceniť, že pán podpredseda parlamentu sa zamýšľa nad vylepšením znenia toho zákona, veď to chceme nakoniec viacerí. A len obávam sa, že keď sa budeme snažiť zadefinovať ten inak evidovaný pobyt, lebo nie všade je to registrácia alebo trvalý pobyt, tak zase sa dostaneme k takej všeobecnej definícii.
So we have to talk about this permanent residence. We have to realize that when it comes to this permanent stay, every country has it differently, and so at the end of the day we'll come back to this vague definition. And I think we should really go back to the very beginning, and Blana has already the Deputy Speaker Brana has already talked about this. That Slovakia used to have a law, and Slovakia should have this law, and each country determines their citizenship rules on their own. And there are certain standards, but they're not binding. But we still have the Slovak living abroad certificate. That reaction that took place here was within a couple of hours. You believe it was right, but we have to understand that those who paid the price were not the ones who metaphorically were supposed to pay the price, because we don't know how many Hungarians living in Slovakia lost their citizenship, but we're getting the news now of thousands of people who live in Hungary who lost their citizenship, and that's the reason that you proposed your guidelines. So if the law is inspired by these guidelines, that's one thing, but we will try to improve it, and so that we can remove this wrong as much as we can.
Som rád, pán kolega Vetrák, že ste v podstate potvrdili, že sa inšpiruje, ale to je len z vecného hľadiska len dobré, ale vieme spoločne všetci, že nástroj udeľovania štátneho občianstva má aj široké kontexty z hľadiska geopolitického, pretože ak by som mal odpovedať kolegovi Dimešimu, tak by som povedal...
So there are geopolitical reasons for this, and if I was to respond to colleague Dimeši, there's the same situation going on in Transnistria in Moldova. So, because this is a geopolitical interest and political interest of the country, and we had to react. And today we have gotten to a place where we're debating this, and then let's debate this so that it's set up in a way that everyone is happy about it, and so that there is no room for abuse. I believe that's what everyone wants. So we are ready for a debate in the second reading, as I've said, and so that we know that it could work in this way. But once again, please don't put us in a position that we are trying to remedy Fico's unbelievable wrong committed against Slovaks and to punish Slovaks. This is ridiculous. You cannot do this. What should we think about the fact about the Hungarian foreign minister meeting with Representative Dimeši at this exact time? What should we think about this? And now the last speech. That was the last speech, so now the debate is going to be concluded, and so the minister does not want to take a stance, but the rapporteur does want to take a stance. Dear Mr. Chairman, dear Mr. Speaker, let me propose the vote on these matters tomorrow at 11 o'clock.
Ďakujem, takže nielen
Thank
o
you.
tejto tlači 440, ale o tej predchádzajúcej budeme hlasovať zajtra.
Thank you. So not just this
Ja prerušujem rokovanie o tomto bode.
proposal, but also the other proposal regarding the business law. We are going to have a vote
Vážení páni poslanci,
tomorrow.
ďalším bodom programu je návrh poslancov Mariana Kerryho a Juraja Blanára
we're going to vote at 11 o'clock tomorrow.
republiky 30. výročiu vzniku Vyšehradskej skupiny.
All right, and that's it. That concludes the debate. And so now tomorrow they're going to have a vote, but it's just the first reading, which means just whether it passes at this initial stage. It's a government proposal. There's every reason for it to pass, and there is no reason for it not to pass. And right now, if you have any questions, feel free to post them in the chat. I'm more than happy to answer any questions. It's tomorrow at 11 a.m. Slovak time. And what time is that? It's probably sometime at night, in the very early hours in the morning in North America. Any other questions? Anyone's curious? Maybe on the specifics of the law or anything like that. You're welcome. I'm happy to have done this. It was not easy, but yeah, I'm happy to do this, and I think there will be some more substantive debate in the second reading, and hopefully I'll be able to get a slightly better setup next time. But that was a great experience. Just trying to set up the stream and translating. So to be honest, they didn't really talk about. There was almost no opposition to this removal, because I mean Dostal talked about it. He made it very clear. What. Thank you. It's Elena just posted it. It's 4 a.m. CST. So I believe that's 5 a.m. in New York, But again, this vote is expected to pass. This is really just a procedural vote. There's nothing of substance on it. But again, so I mean, Dostal talked about the residency requirement. As you could have seen, no one really mentioned the residency requirements, so it's just not on people's minds. And the thing is that you could have seen that people were somewhat opposed to the Hungarian law. The question is how, to what extent are they going to be applying those same sort of principles to our law and say, well, look, this might be hypocritical, but I suppose the coming weeks and the coming months are going to show that. They're going to have a debate in the committees as well, and we're trying to. Those are not streamed, but we will maybe try to have that happen. We're just gonna have to see how that is, whether that would be at all possible. And the second reading, I believe that now they're just going to have the committees, and I believe the deadline that they talked about was April 30th, and then they talked about the deadline on those on the reports from those committees to be May 3rd. So I believe sometime in May they're going to have the second reading. Okay, so Parviz is asking who emerged as the top two allies to our cause. Well, I think definitely I'll have to look her name up because I didn't make a note of it. But the rapporteur, basically the MP in the red dress, I believe she feels strongly about this. I believe the MP from the Olano party, from the Prime Minister's party, that was talking here. I believe there's also some room there that they could be willing to look at the removal of this requirement. Okay, did Dostal say anything that there was no residency requirement in the past? Yes, Dostal said that. This is something I wasn't actually familiar with, and I thought I was fairly familiar with the law on citizenship. Turns out that we even had something in 2005 that I had no idea about, and he did say that this was actually the policy in the past, that Slovaks living abroad were actually able to get citizenship without the residency requirement. So I'll definitely look that up. I'll definitely try to see that, whether that is possible, an inspiration. Right? Does anyone have any other questions? Well, I think the biggest misconception was, and this is something they alluded to a little bit, was that that other countries don't do this, that other countries somehow have a problem with dual citizenship, and they said very clearly there's only one country which has stricter rules, which is Estonia, and there's only 4 other countries which have a problem with dual citizenship. And I think that's something that really needs to be the awareness there needs to be raised, because I think most people in Slovakia wouldn't know that this is not the norm anywhere, really. And if it was the norm in the past, it's the general trend is that countries are moving away from restricting dual citizenship and towards allowing people to be dual citizens, to have multiple citizenships. Whereas in Slovakia in 2010 we went in the exact opposite direction. Whereas in just 3 years later or 4 years later in Czechia, they actually legalized dual citizenship. In Czechia, they had the exact same law that we have now from 93 till 2014, and in 2014 they actually rescinded it, and just 4 years before that we introduced it. So you can see how and they talked about Czechia as well, so you can see how all the other countries are actually moving in the exact opposite direction, but we moved towards restricting dual citizenship. Do you have any other questions? Feel free to ask whatever. All right, so it looks like we don't have any more questions. Let me just look through the chat if there's anything else that I didn't really talk about. All right. So I can see that no one has any further questions. So I want to thank you so much for being here with me for the 3 hours or however long this took us. It was a pleasure. It was tough, but I enjoyed it. It's a new experience, and let's hope that I'll be able to do another stream once the second reading is going to take place. I'm going to be happy to do another live stream. So again, thank you so much for taking part. Thank you so much for being a part of this initiative and for being interested in this whole topic and in reviving your national roots and your relationship to Slovakia and yeah, have a good one.